should have stopped at the first one or the second. Why did I eat the third? The spices kept coming and I wasn't running, and I already had them. They were all there for me. I can't say no. I gotta go. I gotta give it up, 'cause I got what they want. Yeah, I got what they want. I got boy pussy. My music brings all the goth boys to the yard, and they're like a shit. I'm getting fucking hard. Got thirsty kept coming. You know I wasn't running, and I always welcome it by the handful for me. What you gonna do? It's Femboy Friday. It's going my way. I'm here to party. I'll have it my way. God boy pussy. Can't believe you're tripping around. I wanna go, I can't let you down. I wanna go and I wanna show it. I will be a cat for you. I wanna fall asleep in the morning. I wanna be your heart attack. Laze around and feed me food. I'm wearing a million hats for you. I said my name is Emmett. Video games might drive yourself insane. Roar XD, want you to roll with me. Skibbity, how about no? Your enemy, how about nobody? Cancel me, how about no? I don't like you if I should. I tried smoking meth kids in my neighborhood. Faith, they said, gotta have faith instead. Wind the dead, how about no? Praise the Lord, you gotta praise the Lord. An alien can ignore. I don't like you if I should. I tried smoking meth with kids from my neighborhood. Farmers market, kill me now. If you're a farmer, farm me a fucking cow.
What's up? I'm gonna turn an extra light on. Look at, I dyed my hair. It's... Which way is it? It's fucking silver. Got silver hair. Half silver, half my original color. I wanted to make it look like I got struck by lightning. Does it look like I got struck by lightning? Okay, I was really...
hide is the fact that these corporations are really
There's this guy named Boots Riley. And he's amazing.
the ones that
Why is this on
public policy.
TYT Sports?
We don't really vote for politicians. We vote for corporate puppets.
Is TYT the Young
And
Turk?
Not only were they making energy policy up in there, they were dictating it to us.
Let's revisit activist, director, and hip hop artist Boots Riley.
Oh,
What
god
other
damn it. I don't
policy
want
do
to. I
these
just want to hear
corporations help make? I want
him talk.
to know who told them to cut welfare reform. Which corporations were in the boardroom meeting with Bill Clinton on that? I want to know really if they have something to do about this war, because we know that the State Department was working with Enron. How do I know that the bombing that's going on in Afghanistan is not to fight terrorism? It's to create little states, little Enron states, little Exxon states all throughout the Middle East.
Oh,
and
he's
little
so
Chiquita
good.
banana republics.
As always, when you have folks who go on shows such as these and disagree with
How
the
we feeling
status
today? How
quo,
we doing? How we
there is
looking? How we smelling?
resounding pushback from the panelists who like things the way they are.
Looking good,
Not
smelling
only
good,
are
feeling
they
good?
listening to these
Huh?
corporations, they're owned by these corporations. The people in the cabinet are on the payroll for Enron. The head of the Republican National Committee collects a 7-figure salary from Enron and lobbies for them. And
got a
they
chitty.
fire people on the cabinet. They say this person is not working with
This
me.
kitty
So
show
they fire
schmog.
them. So the whole
I agree
thing.
with some of what you say.
I don't think Enron's trying to take over Afghanistan.
But
however.
precisely. I mean,
Well,
They have enough troubles.
your
okay,
conclusion-
not only
your
them-
conclusion that we are
Okay.
trying to establish banana republics in
Okay.
Afghanistan,
No.
that's a far-fetched conclusion, you know.
Case in point, Eric Braeden, who in present day is an anti-Trumper. But he can't wrap his head around Riley's points. A quick jump to a recent interview Boots did.
Yeah, I saw the clip of you on Bill Maher. I'm not a big fan of Bill Maher.
Oh, yeah, no, he's undercover, right wing, racist. What was funny is the comedian dude.
Yeah, Harlan Williams.
Yeah, he, during the commercial, he was like, man, I really agree with everything you're saying. They just told me I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to be the funny one and, make fun of you to keep it light so people will watch more,
That's crazy.
Yes, it is. And the saddest part is it wasn't subtle. Here's Williams, again doing as he is told, mocking and mimicking Riley on the show. Honestly, it's just a sad sight to behold.
Aw.
After a commercial break,
I agree with you. I
Maher
just
would
sold
bring
my
the
soul.
following story to light. A Muslim woman sued Florida.
Look at that. That's
because the
beautiful.
state,
Hey,
per
that
the
worked. That turned
Orlando
out so
Sentinel,
good.
suspended her license when she refused to have her photo taken without an Islamic veil.
God bless Sultana, but there's a separation of church and state in America. And if the state asks you to take your veil off, to be photographed, then you bloody well do that.
This obviously became contentious as well. From Dan Nealon of AV Club, Boots Riley quickly becomes the only person on the show who, with 15 years of hindsight, doesn't sound like a total a-hole. While Maher is working out some of his signature borderline Islamophobic material, and the other
Borderline,
guests
fully
seem to just nod along
purely
in agreement,
Islamophobia.
Boots Riley would point out that removing the woman's hijab only became an issue after 9/11 and is just one of many reactionary xenophobic initiatives the state is trying to enforce.
What you're not mentioning, though, that should be said, before September 11th, she was given 2 driver's licenses wearing her veil. And it wasn't a problem. But now it only became a problem because of who she is.
Riley would go on to say the show was choreographed more than people think, adding, quote, it's probably at the same level that many of the reality shows are. The producers do interviews with people beforehand and ask you what you think about certain things. Then they go back
Like
and do
the
another
silver?
round of interviews and tell you what other people said. And then they ask different people to do different roles.
Should've did my whole
What was
head, actually.
interesting was that on that show, there's that comedian and he was making fun of my hand gestures. I forget his name, Harlan or something. The dude that's on one of the first Dave Chappelle movies. He's referencing Half-Baked.
One of the things that I would want to see is a world that we create in which the people democratically control the wealth that we create with our labor. Now, that would be communism. But in order to get there, we need, in order to change things a little or a lot, and even to get there, we need to have a mass, militant, radical labor movement.
Riley would continue reflecting to the Chicago Reader. So that's what that was like. I've seen so many people go on Bill Maher. I wasn't the first rapper on there. I've seen everybody go on there, and every time
I don't think I've
they'd
ever
say
actually
some
listened to any of
slightly
Boots'
racist
raps.
quip, and people would laugh along and not want to say anything that might get them uninvited from the show. Snoop was on there, and Snoop was like, I got 3 kids. And Maher's like, that you know of.
What I'm doing is not just trying to get
not just trying to stop participating in this system. What I'm trying to do is get people to overthrow the system. And that's two different things. And because you can't stop participating in this system, there's no way to do that.
As AV Club concluded, clips like these are just proof that Boots Riley has always been just as authentically radical as he is today. It's just taken a long time for the rest of us to catch up to him.
The greatness of this country is based on the separation of church and state. That is what makes this country great. You don't impose your religious views on state government. You do not do that in this country.
We don't walk into it.
We don't do that. We don't do that.
We don't want to do that.
That's done all the
No,
time.
we don't want to do that.
Well, that's just flat out insane
That's
from the
funny.
TV star. Our government is infected throughout time with the illusion of the separation, but it is not practiced. Then this jabroni would go even further when it did not have to get to this point nor be uttered.
What she wants to drive. They want the best part of America, the modernity. They want all the good stuff.
point
They
is,
want to
this
have a
was not
cell
a
phone
problem
to call
until
to say,
September
hey
11th.
guys, come over to the beheading.
An Islamophobic racist.
Jesus.
Umar.
God,
Always
he's
has
always been the
always will be.
worst, hey?
Meanwhile, Riley would direct such films as Sorry to Bother You. Speaking with Jacobin, he'd say, in the world of film, we've edited out all rebellion. We're supposed to be showing representations of life, and whether the main characters in those worlds agree with it or not. There's rebellion that's happening in the world. It's edited out. It's replaced by other mundane things that aren't really in our world, like noontime cafe dates. He'd ask rhetorically, what is capitalism? It's the exploitation of labor and everything that grows out from that point. That is the fulcrum point of capitalism. That is also the part that we could have control of collectively. A bit more of his backstory via Jacobin.
Anti-Records. Sick. Oh, Tom Waits is on it? Nico Case? I must know about this already. So cool.
We want to thank you for flying with us. We know you could have stayed home, just cried and cussed. Mail your guns go off if it's time to bust. Mail they tanks have time to rust. They got the armies turning bullets into gold. They got the hookers turning tricks into cold. And every time the police kicks in the dough, an angel gas breaks dips in the O. And even if a D-boy flips in my O, it ain't enough to buy shit anymore. Sleep in the doorway, piss on the floor. Look in the sky, wait for missiles to show. It's finna blow, cause they got the TV, we got the truth. They own the judges and we got the proof. We got hella people, they got helicopters. They got the bombs and we got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. Talk about it, not show. Be about it, it's not know. Talk about it, not show. Be about it, it's not know. I just spit the dope lines, I don't snort them. Tell the boss to call police to escort them. You don't write out them lies, you just quote them.
Get offline, plug into this modem. No, you can't outvote them. The rules are still golden. Only jewels we holdin' is we guardin' our scrotum. If you press your ear to the turf that is stolen, you can hear the sound of limitations exploding. Please, sir, may we have another portion? We're children of the beast that dodge the abortion. Neck placed firm between the floor and the portion. We'll shut your shit down, don't call it extortion. Caution, we're coming for your head. So call the feds and get files to shred. Every textbook read said bring you the bread. But guess what? We got you instead.
We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine. You better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine. You better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine. You better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine. Let's keep it banging like a shotgun. We in the war before we fall. Now if the time of work is fade, a common enemy we got one. Now keep it banging like a shotgun. We in the war before we fall. Now if
I was listening to some of your album, "Kill My Landlord," and the message. You know, it's very explicit. You know, about Communist Manifesto. We get all these questions all the time from folks saying, "Well, what should I read? You know, what's the theory background I should have?" And in a lot of ways, you really lay out. I don't want to say in like breadcrumbs because it's more forward than that. You're very explicit about kind of the methodology of how to achieve change in a way that I feel like is really inspiring. I think you make a good
Oh man, this came out in 1993. Damn.
point that people
How
feel
old
lost
is
and
Boots?
alienated because they, even if they have a sense that the world could and should be better, these broad concepts like revolution are
He's
sometimes difficult
54 years old.
to pin down and
Man,
are easy to
got
parody
one
by
gray
folks
hair on
who
that head.
think the whole thing is pie in the sky and ridiculous anyway. So I'm curious about you specifically. Could you back up a little and tell us a bit about your origin story and how you came to be a 15-year-old who was engaged in social movements so in depth at such a young age?
Yeah, well, I mean, the story I always tell is that when I was 14, first I was at a barbecue, and a youth organizer was like,
Come down, buddy.
hey, we do a bunch of stuff. We're going to come by your house and blah, 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 and I was like, when are you coming by? They said, oh yeah, Saturday at noon. And I was like, yeah, sure, be there. And I totally planned to not be there, right? Because it sounded boring, right? It sounded like something I do not want to do. And I forgot that they were coming. And so I was there. And the dude, I was 14, he showed up in front of my house with a van that was packed full of 14-year-old girls. And I was like, okay, I'll come. But really he said, okay, do you want to go to the beach?
Puppy. The
And
puppy
I was
wants
like,
to come in, but the
yeah,
kitties
that
don't
sound-
want him here.
You want to go to the beach.
He's being
with
very respectful. He's a very respectful
van
boy.
full of girls. And so, I mean, you're 14. You're thinking about maybe music and definitely sex, right? Like, that's what is on people's minds. Like, or even just companionship, friendship stuff. And so I got in the van, but in the 1.5 hour, and once I started getting in the van, he said, we're going to go to the beach, but first we're going to stop and support the Watsonville cannery workers strike. And I was like, okay. And on the way there, these obviously now women, these girls, and I say that because I know who they are, and they were talking about things I had no idea about, right? They had just current events that I knew were being talked about on the news that I just was always shutting off. I didn't feel like
The homie Deculturation called me out.
Understand it, but they were like not only talking about them, but debating them, but at the same time talking about music and things like that. And they just seemed like they understood all of this. And what I know now is they understood all of this because they felt like there was something they could do about it. Like, you know, you're a young teenager. Sometimes you feel like there's nothing that can be done. I don't want to know about that. Whatever. Yeah. All this noise is going to happen. People are going to be mad or excited about something, and it's going to change tomorrow. But they had, because of being involved in this organization, had this idea that they could do something about it. And I went from, like, in the course of a few hours, from like, wanting to hang out with them to wanting to be them, right? And wanting to understand what was going on and be able to just talk about these things. And because it seemed like there's a sense of there's a sense of understanding who you are when you understand those things. So that attracted me to that. Got involved in we would go and support the Watsonville Cannery Workers strike. And this was not as involved in what I'd be as connected as what I would be involved in later, because this was just us passing out flyers and helping out and things like that. But I was then invited to be part of the Delano and McFarland Summer Project, which was the organizing of the Anti-Racist Farm Workers Union. And with that, so by this time, it was summertime and I had turned 15. And with that was the situation I just talked about. But we'd go there and we'd stay there for 2 months at a time. And every morning, like talking about 3 in the morning, when the organizers who lived there and were going off to work in the fields, when they got up, they'd leave a list. Here are the things that this person has to do today. Here are the things that that person has to do today. And on your list might be organize the caravan route, right? Or it might be it might be organize, make the schedule for the rally that's going, because every day there's a rally, and that rally is on the back of a flatbed truck that pulls up to the field, and the organizers who've been working all day getting folks, trying to get folks excited about being in the union or joining the strike, they come out of the fields, and that rally has to be ready. So who's going to speak? What are they going to say? Do you know Spanish? Okay, here, what can you learn? All those sorts of things. And it might even be plays, because at that time, it was the 80s, so still the legend of Teatro Campesino, who had been around, a theater group that had been around during Cesar Chavez days. That was very much a part of things. So it might be, you got to write a play, right? I mean, by tonight, by noon, whatever that,
I need to open the window.
Lasts for 3 minutes.
Need to open this window here.
So a lot of bad plays, a lot of things like that. And so, it might, there was a lot of trial by fire, and, and then just also witnessing the meetings that they'd have, because they'd be having meetings with these towns weren't that big, right? Population 3,000 people, different things like that. Delano was big, McFarland, Wasco, all these places. And they'd be having these meetings where people were actually like just average everyday people, not only debating whether they should join the union and whether a strike would work, but is the strike, is that risk worth it for the chance of changing the whole system? So they weren't just talking about the direct needs. They were talking about that, but they were discussing, folks were thinking about their own life and their own power and ability to change things here and now in relationship to changing the world. And so that quickly, made me feel like I could be part of something that went on for that made me part of history. And so I joined, and that's.
So I'm hearing some interesting parallels between your origin story and Barack Obama's, who famously.
Yeah, he also started by getting in some guy's van.
No, everyone's talking about his new book, right? I'm sorry, I'm being glib, obviously, but he said he started reading, he picked up Marx to impress a long-legged socialist in school.
Yeah, the ethereal bisexual.
The ethereal bisexual. But, in all seriousness, I think that kind of experience is so detached from most American. I mean, to the extent that we had a more prosperous, labor class and more prosperous union environment in the 1970s, that's obviously been devastated since then. And I remember, I said this in a recent episode, that I really regret having not taken labor law in law school. As someone who thought of herself as like relatively socially conscious, it didn't even occur to me that having greater knowledge of that particular issue area was so fundamental to the broader progressive struggles that I would be interested in later years. And one of the things about Sorry to Bother You, that was so interesting, was the centrality of that kind of organizing effort in the workplace that was really offered up as important a plot point and as important a force for driving the action in the film as the Keith Stanfield's character's individual genius and success and that kind of meritocracy story that is usually what you see in these kind of rags to riches tales, right? It was competing with this other story about how the entire workplace could achieve if they were able to unionize and band together. And I think a lot of people watching that movie probably saw a model for achievement and broader change that you frankly don't really ever see.
I'll sub to that. Oh yeah, we got the
I was listening to some
New York elections. They're alive?
And elsewhere, we're saying we're not interested.
Right here, and he was referring.
Scheduled. Woo! Zoran is ahead. Let's go. United Nations live. Been live for 11 hours.
It's extremely important.
How's my music video doing? Oh, 700 views. I think I could have had the grain up even a little bit higher. I knew I gotta like all the comments. Gosh, no freaking way.
I learned math from a fucking monster. Where the fuck you learn yours from? I learned math from a big brain monster. Where the fuck you learn yours from? Now rock. Now rock. Now rock. Two towers. What? Have the dice with the things you hate. And have the dice with the things you hate. And have the dice with the things you hate. And have the dice with the things you hate. And
Hey, that's me. That's a good one. Whoop. Whoop. No. Dump dice and I think.
Early voting has finished for the Democratic mayoral primary, and in-person voting is tomorrow.
Yes, now a new poll running the likely numbers for who could come out on top shows a possible upset. Pix 11's Kirsten Nicole here with a closer look at those details. Good morning, Kirsten.
It's not over until it's over, and we're at an interesting point right now, right? We're between the early voting, we're between primary day. Andrew Cuomo's support has stayed steady over the past month. Starts out with the most votes, but as we all know, ranked choice voting is in play here. And as we go through the simulation and rounds of voting, a different victor emerges. Take a look at how this is predicted to play out in the last major poll before primary day from Emerson College, Pix 11 and The Hill. Andrew Cuomo with first round of voting, maintaining his lead with 36%. Mamdani pulling a very close second at 34%, and Brad Lander rounding out the top three with 13%. Let's take a look at the rest of the candidates. Adrian Adams pulls 8%, Scott Stringer with 3%, Zellner Myrie with 2%. Now, this doesn't take into account the 4% of undecided voters, and there's a margin of error of 3.4%. Now, as the simulation plays out, Cuomo keeps that lead until the 8th and final round, when Lander is eliminated and the majority of those second choice ballots flow to Mamdani, pushing him into the winner's position, 52% to Cuomo's 48%. It is a stunning rise for the 33-year-old assembly member from Queens, who was taking 1% of the vote when we first saw the polls in this race 5 months ago. The number of undecided voters has steadily declined. It's currently sitting at 4%. And these are tight margins between the candidates, also of 4%. Now, along the way, Mamdani has secured key endorsements from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders. There's been cross endorsement from Brad Lander as a second choice candidate. Cuomo getting an important endorsement from President Bill Clinton as well this weekend. Interesting trends teased out from this Emerson College Pix 11 The Hill poll along racial, ethnic, age lines. Under 50 voters supporting Mamdani 2-1. Cuomo leading in the over 50 and over 60 categories. Cuomo leading in those
How is he
without
allowed to
a
run?
four-year
He's like
college
a
degree.
fucking sex
Black
offender.
and Hispanic voters breaking for Cuomo by about 60% to 40%, but Mamdani leading among white and Asian voters. College educated supporting Mamdani by 62%, men supporting Mamdani at 56%, women supporting Cuomo at 52%. Now, since early voting started, we've seen nearly 400,000 New Yorkers cast those primary ballots, 384,338 early voters to be exact. Sources close to Cuomo's campaign insisting that they have their own poll numbers contradicting this showing that their candidate is actually up by double digits. Another factor, guys, this dangerous heat. Standing in line to vote tomorrow is going to be an issue for people. That's why the early voting is always encouraged, that people get out there with that heat warning for some voters. So much going on with all of this.
Yeah, those numbers really showing every vote counts.
Absolutely. Now, a race to win the margins, effectively.
This is so funny. There's this thing, it's like 50% of Canadians want socialism, but few want to pay for it. It's like, hey, if we have socialism, it's going to be more than just a wealth tax on the top 1% of earners. Under actual socialism, there is no top 1% of income owners. We all own the companies together that we work for. We work together in ownership. This is so stupid. It's like you don't even understand the basics of socialism. Be like, oh, they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to pay for socialism. What would they be paying for? Fucking idiots. Jesus Christ, everyone's so fucking stupid. How do these people get hired to write? I guess if they're just like, I hate socialism, you're hired. Gonna do. What if thirst traps are the new opera?
a lot of talk about young people and how to get them to engage with culture, how to get them into museums, how to get them to go to the theater. We need to find new and innovative ways to educate young people and get them to engage with real culture. When I say we, I think people who work in public service in one way or another, either literally in art museums or creating policy concerning culture, international organizations, politics, all that stuff. I'm sure we all know that if we promote one thing or certain types of culture as valuable, we are excluding others. But sometimes we are not that subtle about things that we find not worth promotion. I've never heard anybody say, young people are not on TikTok enough. Young people are not watching reality TV enough. And yet we search for a way to get to the young people to understand what they are watching, as if the data were not available to us.
We are back
I've
into
always
another
defended
crisis, another
trash
conflict,
culture.
the Iranian-Israeli, the first Iranian-Israeli war.
What are we watching
Actually,
here?
This war is historic.
Air defenses
It's the first
successfully
time we see
intercept
Iran and
missile
Israel
attack.
exchanging fire, exchanging missiles, launching missiles to each other's
US
geography,
base.
and it's a war without geography because they do not share.
They're attacking
borders
US
together.
bases.
However, what happened today in Qatar, the condemnation from the Qatari government, the United States, of course, we are waiting the United States' position on this, and the Iranian National Security Council, Supreme National Security Council, ensuring in its own words in a statement that this was not meant at the state of Qatar, at the friendly state of Qatar, or the people of Qatar. However, it was mainly meant on the United States soldiers that are based in that base in Al Udeid.
Okay, the very comprehensive overview of the situation there in Tehran before and after it launched those attacks at Qatar. For the moment, Ali, many thanks indeed. Let's now go to Osama bin Javed. He's our correspondent here in Doha. He's in the north of the city. First of all, it was an hour and a half ago that these attacks happened. Where were you, Osama, and what was your experience of them?
I was right here in the street when I first saw the flashes, and just beyond the horizon there, we saw those projectiles rising. So behind me, you can say geographically would be where the Udeid base is. That's where the projectiles came. And above us, there were multiple projectiles which were intercepted. These are ballistic missiles that Iran had fired towards the Udeid air base. The missiles, which appeared had prior warning for the state of Qatar, because we heard from various embassies, including the American and the British embassy, and just about an hour ahead of this attack, the airspace of Qatar was shut down. It was not the only country which is shut down. Its airspace, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Iraq, have all shut down airspaces ahead of these strikes. So it appears that there was some sort of communication or indication that this will be.
Poor network connection. Why? What's happening with my network? Why is my network being unstable? Oh, no, it's excellent. Weird.
Coming for anything, hear anything go off.
Absolutely, and I can confer with that. Having lived here for 13 years, I've never known anything like this to happen here in Qatar. You said that the Qataris got forewarning. We saw the airspace shut down. We got messages from embassies to shelter in place. But what warning did people out on the streets get? Were there any air raid sirens? Because, of course, there aren't any shelters or anything in Qatar. People simply would not have expected this attack to happen.
that is the case, because if you've lived in this country, if you visited this country, one sense that you get is safety and security, and that was something that took people by surprise, because yes, there were no air raid sirens or shelters that have been provided, because there's certainly no expectation that any country would attack Qatar, because it's positioned itself sort of the Switzerland of the region, where it has brokered deals and talks between various parts of this region. So it directly does not pose a threat to any country. But what
we have some pictures, I think, that we can run now of shrapnel that fell from one of the interceptions somewhere in Qatar. We're not entirely sure of where this is, but it's an extraordinary large piece of metal there that has fallen on the ground. I mean, this is typical, isn't it, of intercepted strikes when we have been talking about them in Israel, and this is one of the reasons that people need to be warned. Apologies, we seem to have lost the line to Osama bin Javed. But there you can see the pictures of the shrapnel. We're going to try and get some more information on that and where exactly it fell. Let's now go to our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett. Kimberly, we know that Trump is in the Situation Room with his members of his administration, of his cabinet. Are you hearing anything from the White House or the Pentagon at this stage?
Yes, that's right. We do have a statement from the Pentagon, and it is essentially saying that
this is Iran directly attacking
defense official, I
a
can
U.S.
confirm
base?
that the
Is
Al
that
Udeid
what
Air
that's
Base was
happening?
attacked by short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles originating from Iran today. At this time, there are no reports of U.S. casualties. We are monitoring the situation closely and will provide more information as it becomes available. I can tell you that it's not just the Pentagon monitoring this. From the Pentagon is the chair of the Joint Chiefs, Kane. He is here along with the Secretary of Defense and the president's expanded national security team. They are in the Situation Room and have been for more than an hour now.
Why does the Situation Room sound so
We know
sexy?
that initially the U.S. president had been scheduled to have a intel briefing at 17 GMT, but what we know is that the meeting may have even started prior to that, given the fact that there was an indication from Iran through diplomatic channels that this attack would be taking place. It is being reported here, and we can confirm from our sources that, in fact, there was some advance notice that was given through diplomatic channels by Iran. And all indications are right now that the attack is limited to the Al Udeid Air Base. But again, these are just the preliminary reports. Now, in terms of the damage, what we've heard from the Pentagon there is that there have been no casualties. Also, what we're hearing is that there are no reports of initial damage because, according to defense officials, that the American Patriot missile defense systems were activated at Al Udeid and were able to intercept the Iranian missiles. The other thing we should point out about Al Udeid is that, given it's the largest installation for the United States in the region, it was a known that it would be a target. And so as a result, and out of an abundance of caution, our sources are telling us that there was an evacuation of most of the personnel, but also of the military hardware. In other words, a lot of the aircraft was several weeks ago moved from Al Udeid in order to ensure that if there were any short or medium range missiles, in other words, cruise or ballistic missiles fired from Iran, which would take just minutes to reach Qatar, that in fact this would protect a lot of the U.S. equipment. So what we're watching for right now is to get more of an assessment from the Pentagon. It's a little early still, but there certainly are preliminary reports of battle damage assessment. But what the initial reports we're hearing is that this may have been limited in scope, designed to be symbolic and matching the U.S. attack on some of the nuclear sites in Iran. So this would be interpreted, as we've been hearing from some of the military experts here in the United States that have been speaking on live television, that this would be interpreted as Iran trying to save face, but at the same time also saying that there is room for negotiation, something that the United States president said he was looking for. What he wasn't looking for in his public statements on social media was retaliation. retaliation. In fact, he was very clear. He said one day ago, any retaliation by Iran against the United States will be met with force. By Iran against the United States will be met with.
Well, why'd you bomb them? You bombed them first, you
fuckhead. The initial U.S. strike. So we're watching carefully here at the White House to see what the next steps will be. Again, the U.S. president, we have been reporting here on Al Jazeera, has largely been calling the shots, literally and figuratively, himself. Our sources have told us that this has very much been Donald Trump's operation. He chose the date, he chose the means, and so we assume that the response, if there is one, will be very similar as well.
Okay, Kimberly, thanks for that. Do stay with us, because we've actually got the statement now from the Pentagon. A U.S. official from the Defense Department has sent out a statement to the media. In it, it says, in a message, the duty officer said, I can confirm that the Al Udeid Air Base was attacked by short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles originating from
He's so
Iran
fucking
today.
Stupid. The sites that we hit in Iran were totally destroyed, and everyone knows it. Only the fake news would say anything different in order to try and demean as much as possible. And even if they say they were pretty well destroyed, working especially hard on this falsehood is Allison Cooper of Fake News CNN, dumb Brian Elrod, chairman of Concast, Johnny Carl of ABC Fake News, and always the losers of, again, Concast, NBC Fake News. It never ends. Sleazebags in the media. That's why their ratings are all at an all-time low. Zero credibility. Did I hear former President Medvedev from Russia casually throwing the N-word, nuclear, and saying that he and other countries would supply nuclear warheads to Iran? Did he really say that? Or is this just a figment of my imagination? If he did say that, and if confirmed, please let me know immediately. You're the fucking president. How are you tweeting like this? Jesus Christ. The N-word should not be treated so casually. I guess that's why Putin's the boss. By the way, if anyone thinks our hardware was great over the weekend, by far the strongest and best equipment we have, 20 years advanced over the pack, is our nuclear submarines. They're the most powerful and lethal weapons ever built. And just launched the 30 Tomahawks. All 30 hit their mark perfectly. So in addition to our great fighter pilots, thank you, the captain and crew. Jesus fucking Christ. This is how the world war is going to go, being tweeted out by a bumbling fucking dipshit. This is crazy. Oh no. Department of Energy, drill baby drill, and I mean now. Gas prices are rising because they closed the what is it called? Strait, whatever it's called.
Analysts are saying that this is symbolic, that this may be a contained response. The United States is not taking any chances and is heightening an awareness and alert, not just abroad, but here in the U.S. as well.
That's Kimberly Halkett joining us with all the very latest there from the White House. Kimberly, many thanks indeed. Mehran Kamrava is a professor of government at Georgetown University in Qatar. He also directs the Iranian Studies Unit at the Arab Center for Research and Policy Studies. He joins us live from Doha. And Mehran, we've been speaking at length over the last few days, the last week during this conflict between Israel and Iran about the situation in the Middle East. So you're well placed to analyze the current situation now. But first of all, I just want to get a personal note from you. You are here in Doha as well. What was your experience of the missile strike that happened about an hour, two hours ago now?
I live about 30 kilometers from the U.S. base, and we heard massive booms. The building shook, the windows shook, and as I looked outside, the night sky had all these flying lights, and there were people. I live in one of the many gated communities here called compounds that many expatriates live in, and neighbors were running, many were scared. I saw many people crying. And for the first time in 18 years of living in Qatar, I heard sirens go off. And so I think it's fair to say that there was a fair amount of fear among the local residents here.
That's interesting that you heard sirens, because our correspondent in north of Doha did not hear any sirens there. Were they coming from the Al Udeid base?
I'm not sure. They were distant, but I could clearly hear the sirens where I live, as I said, about 30 kilometers from Al Udeid. I think that would have been a little too far if the sirens were from Al Udeid. I do think they were from the city instead.
Okay. So this is the first time that Iran has targeted a U.S. base outside of Iraq. Why do you think it chose the one in Qatar?
Well, largely because of symbolic reasons. This is the U.S., the biggest base that the United States has. It is a base that can house up to 10,000 American soldiers. It's a self-contained city. And the Iranians had to make a statement commensurate and proportionate with American attack on their nuclear facilities. So it was really, in some ways, it was surprising because Qatar is one of the very few friends that Iran has in the Arab world. But at the same time, it was not surprising in the sense that Al Udeid is really, it symbolizes America's military presence here in the region.
As you say, Qatar is one of the few friends that Iran has in the Arab world. Qatar now saying it is within its rights to respond. But do you think we will see a response, and what form might that take?
It would be interesting to see if there is a response, and if there is one, what form that takes. I think Qatar, of course, has to issue a statement like that because it cannot appear as if it's silent in the face of violation of its sovereignty. But let's remember that in 2020, when Iran hit American bases in Iraq, after the assassination of General Soleimani, they gave a 1 hour notice to the Iraqi government, and I would be extremely surprised if they did not give a similar warning to the Qatari government, particularly in light of the fact that about an hour before the attacks, Qatari airspace was closed. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is not a fair amount of choreography and coordination involved between Iran, Qatar, and even between Iran and the United States.
No, indeed, we were hearing from our correspondent that she believed that through back channels, US was also warned in advance of this strike. I suppose the big question now is less about how Qatar will respond and more about how the US will respond. What will be Trump's next move?
That's an excellent question. Again, in 2020, Trump held his fire when Iran attacked the U.S. bases in Iraq. The Iranians fully expected the United States to counterattack, and the U.S. did not. So we have to wait and see. Was this a one-off and we're done? Or is this the beginning of a vicious cycle of attacks and counterattacks between Iran, the United States, and then American bases across the region?
Okay, Mehran Kamrava for the moment. Many thanks indeed. We really appreciate you bringing your personal and professional expertise to this story here in Doha.
Thank you.
Well, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps has released a statement following the attacks.
Pirates who are plundering and pillaging at rates unseen in a decade. My bill proposes proposes sanctions on any pirates around the world, blocking assets in or associated with the United States and denying them entry into our country. As an international leader in trade and security,
you're talking about pirates?
The United States must seek to stop piracy around the world. This is America on its finest, trying to help facilitate global trade, stopping piracy around the world, and we must secure global waterways for the safety of ships, crew members, and critical ship-dependent supply chains. My bill is also necessary to step to ensure the development of African economies may generate greater prosperity through stability in Somalia.
Are they trying to make pirates illegal?
To grow and prosper while facing serious piracy threats. We cannot allow violent criminals and terrorists to continue stunting the economic development of Somalia and the surrounding region. Beyond direct threats to the United States and Somalia, piracy is often linked.
Jesus Christ. I thought they were talking about like stealing fucking movies off the internet.
Well, things are returning back to normal. Most people have resumed their routine and gone back to their daily basically lives. But certainly the moment the missiles were intercepted over the skies of Doha, most of the people around the city heard them. Many saw them. We've seen the footages that have been coming in, the mobile footages that show the minute the air defense systems were activated and intercepted the Iranian missiles over the Doha skies. Many people are still shocked. I think there's a sense that most people in this country never thought this kind of an event would happen. But having said that, there were signs and warnings prior to the launch of these Iranian missiles. First, the British Embassy and the American Embassy in Qatar issuing statements for their citizens to seek shelter and stay indoors. And then, of course, the Qatari government announcing the temporary closure of its airspace. And then, of course, we heard the missiles being intercepted. So stage by stage, people were getting prepared. But still, many people were shocked and surprised. I myself was out in one of the malls in Doha, and I was waiting for a taxi. And I heard the sound of the explosions in the skies. And then I felt the ground shake underneath me. And that's when we knew really that it was starting. Many people hope that it was the end, and it doesn't seem to be a second or third wave or continuation by the Iranians. Clearly, the intent of the attack was to deliver a message to the United States government and to President Donald Trump, but also to the Qataris as well, and Gulf countries and other military U.S. bases in the region that Iran has the capability and the ability to launch these attacks.
Dorsa, I just want you to give us a bit of an idea of the geography of Qatar, because for people who are unfamiliar with it, they will see a tiny peninsula just off of Saudi Arabia, and it looks extremely small. But could you give us an idea of how far away Al Udeid actually is from the urban areas, from where you are, from where Al Jazeera is, from where most people live in their compounds that Mehran Kamrava was talking about?
Well, Al Udeid Air Base is a self-contained base that is roughly, I would say, about 50 to 60 kilometers outside of the city center. Doha is home to about 700,000 people, in the state of Qatar, about 2.5 million. But this air base is very far removed from the urban center and the civilian population. It is self-contained. This is how it was designed back in 1996 when the Qataris built it. So we don't really have any idea or interaction with the military personnel from this base. We don't see it very often unless you have something to do at this facility and that is heavily guarded. Most people don't even know where it is that live in Qatar. They just know of the name. So we understand that this base was also evacuated a while ago by the U.S. military, given the threat levels that their personnel face in the region. So really knowing the Iranians knew that this air base would be empty, and clearly the target and the intention was to show that Iran is responding to the United States after the U.S. attacked its 3 nuclear sites Sunday morning. And the intent was not to cause any damage damage on either the civilian population in Qatar or the U.S. citizens and military personnel at this airbase.
Indeed, and we are hearing from the Qatari Foreign Ministry that there were no casualties, no deaths, no injuries from this attack. Dorsa, thank you very much for that update. Let's bring in Marwan Bashawer. He's Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, joins us now from Paris. Now, as Dorsa was saying, the Al Udeid Air Base, Marwan, it's some 50 to 60 kilometers away from the urban area of Doha, Wakra, the built-up areas. However, in a country the size of Qatar, this attack is something that everybody in the country would have felt.
Well, it seems so from the text messages and the WhatsApps and what have you. Aside from that, and aside from the fact it's the first, it's quite surprising to most people. The idea that there's this little territory where the base is that's been leased to the U.S. government, it clearly signifies that it wasn't Qatari's sovereignty that was violated. It was an attack on a military base. And yet, it was important for the Qataris to, make a point about that this is a violation of our sovereignty, least or otherwise, that, the Iranians should not be carrying this kind of attack. And yet again, we also heard that they had an advance notice, that they certainly did not go beyond the vicinity of the base and so forth. So I think that aspect of it, the aspect of the Qatar in the Iranian attack against an American base, I think that's going to prove more and more to be a detail, not an important. Not for the Qataris, it's important, of course. But I mean, in terms of the war, I think it's going to be made clear again and again, and the Iranians are apologizing again and again that this is not meant against Qatar.
One wonders, though, what the destabilizing effect will be across the region, because the Gulf countries pride themselves on stability, and that has now been rocked.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, the big fear is not just that. It's not the response. It's the response to the response to the response to the response, right? I mean, because that's what you have. So already now we had, since April 2024, we've had now responses back and forth, right? And this now could accelerate and could speed up the idea of retaliation and counter-retaliation. I'm sure that's what they're discussing now at the White House, is how we're going to respond. And eventually this could actually go out of, whack, as it were. It could start getting more and more countries involved. But even for Iran itself, moving forward, I mean, we've seen this movie before, right? I mean, look at the 4 other countries that we've seen such interventions in. Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yemen. We're talking about not just hundreds of thousands of deaths. We're talking about millions of casualties. Millions of casualties. Just the past 20 years, these 4 main wars where there were attempts at regime change, basically leading to failed states, civil wars of sorts, and so on and so forth. And that's just 4. And we know how it was always snowballing, right? It starts with something, it goes to something else. Who would have predicted that we're going to have ISIS coming out of Iraq and Syria? Who would have predicted that there's going to be, a civil war, a sectarian war, conflicts in Iraq? Some of us did. We said, we warned back in 2002 and 2003 in the New York Times that this will happen. But of course, American elites, American establishment is so snob and apparently ahistorical that they don't seem to learn from the lessons of history. I doubt personally, Laura, that President Trump reads history. I doubt very much. I doubt that he read any book of history. He listens to Sunday sermons from evangelical preachers, the charismatic type, but I'm not sure he reads history. By the way, Netanyahu reads a lot of history. He's a ferocious reader of history. But that doesn't mean he concludes the right lessons of it, right? I mean, we know that Sharon, who was involved in the Gulf War back then, and then, in a little politicide in Palestine, had always the book, The Savage Wars of Peace, right next to him, which is about the colonial war against, Algeria that led to over 1 million deaths and, God knows how many casualties. But no one learns the lessons. The lessons been coming to us again and again and again. The French lost, the Americans lost, the British lost. Did I say the French? The Italian lost. And I think the Israelis eventually will end up losing. These are quick wins. There are no victories in these wars. These are, words of poets.
And the problem is, I suppose, when we're looking at who is involved in this conflict, Donald Trump in the White House, Benjamin Netanyahu in Tel Aviv, in Israel, these are reactive people. Would they see this attack as a green light to go all out in Iran and go for the regime change that we've heard so much talked about over the past week?
It's a real possibility, especially as the war now continues to escalate, and as the Iranians have proven that they are, just as stubborn and just as steadfast and just as ready to sacrifice
what the fuck?
as they did during the Iraq-Iran war for
I thought
8
this
years.
asshole was supposed to be in New York.
I'm in the car. It was fantastic. And the worst part about it is when I first, because I'm, I check it before I leave, obviously. I'm like constantly monitoring how many minutes it's going to take. It happened literally as I got into the Sepulveda street. All of a sudden, I got a warning when it said, "Ooh, traffic is slowing down." And I was like, what is this? Traffic is slowing down. That's not good.
Oh, did he miss his flight?
What's that about? Turns out it was slowing down permanently. It was dead stopping. A cop got run over at a traffic stop on the 405. He's dead, and they had to close it down for like 2 hours. Makes sense. Great.
This is sick. Firefighters in Bell blocked ICE, made them reverse, and ran them out with solidarity with fire unions that know who they serve and why nobody says fuck the firefighters. That is incredible.
Classic.
That's gonna make me cry. I love that with all my heart. So you just stopped going to New York because
that's what I got.
traffic?
I woke up. I went to bed. Woke up. Slept in. I'm all over the place, man. I'm fucking up. Diet's ass. Gaining weight. Ankle sucks. Ankle's busted. Played a little bit of basketball in the morning. Ankle still sucks. I hate being 33. About to be 34.
Oh, me too, brother.
You already know what it is, right? Some of you do. But I digress. Let's get to the freaking news. Yeah, the most